This is State Representative Jonathan Singer coming to you from the house of one of our illustrious volunteers, and I'm joined by another one of our illustrious volunteers, Marisa Dirks. And I'm just doing a quick video today to talk about the importance not only of this election, but what it really means to get involved. So, Marisa.
Hi, Jonathan.
Welcome to our show.
Happy to be here.
So, really, the ballot is big this year. The Blue Book almost looks like a phone book.
We've 12 pages.
12 pages. Mm-hmm. I think there are 11.
Oh, you said the Blue Book.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the voter guide.
Well, you were going to talk about the voter guide.
Okay, and I'll do that.
But the Blue Book by itself, I think we've got between constitutional amendments and propositions, about 11 different issues just at the statewide level, not counting county elections, not counting city elections, not counting what's going on at the state legislative level, all the way to the top of the ticket.
Right. As well as judge retention and all that kind of stuff too.
I'm glad you retained that. So,
okay.
So for folks out there watching, you've been a dedicated volunteer for more years than I can remember, at least. So what is it that got you inspired to get out there to make sure that our voters know what they can do?
Well, I think when I first started working on this beyond just voting, it was 2007, the fall of 2007. Mm-hmm. And there was a development issue in Longmont. And to me, seemingly overnight, about 100 volunteers gathered. And we were tasked with collecting signatures. And I was, first of all, amazed that there were that many volunteers in my hometown of Longmont, Colorado. But it was the first time that I realized grassroots interaction makes a difference. And we fulfilled our objective. The objective was to get 4,000 signatures. We actually got 6,000. And the thing that we were trying to stop, well, they basically took their toys and went home. And so it basically told me, wow, if you get involved, you can really make a difference. So, and then then I got involved in being a precinct leader, and I really started thinking about how important getting out the vote was. And most importantly, especially since, Boulder County Dems have always talked about voting the whole ballot. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean? And I'm a graphic designer, so I always think about how do you communicate that to people? And it's the idea that you have a lot of races on the ballot. Some of those quote-unquote smaller races that are on that bottom part of the ballot, people don't know what happens, what they do, but that's where you are really affected directly, right in your backyard, about how you're being represented. And bottom line is you can be cynical about politics, but it's still based on the idea that lines are drawn, people live within those districts, and then we elect people to represent us in our districts. And through some of the messaging work I've done through Longmont Area Democrats, I talk a lot about how any person has, including city council members, they have like 25 people, elected people that represent you. And when you kind of think, that must not be that important, you leave that part of your ballot blank, you're allowing someone else to choose for you. And so you might as well, get the basics down, and that is know what districts you live in, know who represents you, whether or not they're doing a good job, and to vote your whole ballot, and essentially never not vote again. It's kind of like an idea of falling in love with your ballot, I guess, like taking ownership of it, protecting it, and then also realizing that there are other people who don't have a voice, and who in other, as we see in other states, and those long serpentine voting lines, and they don't have enough polling centers, and that's really bad. Or the fact that women only got the right to vote not that long ago when you think about it. So if people fought and died so that we could vote, it's a pretty precious thing. It's the most optimistic thing you can do.
It's a unique privilege. I just ran into a woman at the coffee shop today, actually, and she noticed my button. So it says yes on 73 and or vote red for Ed, and she lives in a country where there's so much corruption that she had to leave. She was so afraid of what was going to happen, she had to leave. And but she wants to be involved in the political process here and be involved in building a better community here. And it's just so remarkable that we have this opportunity. But speaking of that, like I said, we've got this long ballot. Everyone gets a mail-in ballot, right? Here in Colorado.
Yes.
So
mailed last week.
Mailed last week, so it should be in your mail. You can go to Go Vote Colorado. If you're missing your ballot, if it hasn't come up in the mail right now, govotecolorado.com.
Right.
But we have a tool here that helps walk progressive through this, because one of the things that we've discovered, and you mentioned this too, is that people tend to vote at the top of the ticket for governor, or lieutenant governor, whatever it is. But then as it goes down the ballot, as we go down the ballot, we see especially progressives tend to drop off. They don't vote their entire ballot for whatever reason. And so people like Betsy Markey probably would still be in Congress if voters voted their entire ballot. Jonah Goose would have been Secretary of State if voters had voted their entire ballot.
We wouldn't have a Tea Party Congress if people had voted in the 2010 midterm. I'm like, if you care about voting the whole ballot, you also care about voting all the elections too, because it's all interrelated and it all kind of makes sense. And so
what is this tool that people can use here in Boulder County?
Okay, so what the Boulder County Dems has done since 2008, and actually Dickie Lee said that they had done it earlier, at one point, but it's called the Boulder County Democratic Party Voter Guide. And we started in 2008, but this year we really worked on improving it. And so, do you want me to walk through it?
Well, why don't you give us the highlights, and then we'll tell people where to go.
So it's a through line. It basically starts out with what Democrats stand for, and we've got that in Spanish and English on the cover of the English guide, but then the guide is also in Spanish. So you've got everything in both languages. What do Democrats stand for? One of the things I really like is we talk about what do each of the offices do, like what does the Secretary of State do? And then instead of ads, we basically asked each of the candidates to give us 30 to 35 words about how they're going to do that job that we described and how it's going to, reflect the ideals of being a Democrat. And then ballot issues, executive committee reviewed these, debated them, and then came to recommendations. A whole list of voter service polling centers, VSPCs, voting logistics, and then we basically have another page where the party just thanks its volunteers and actually asks you if you'd like to volunteer, dropping more of these guides or doing the vote notes, which is a great project we do, and why it's important to vote your whole ballot. The majorities matter and all that kind of good stuff. And like I said, all of that same information in the Spanish version. So I guess I did do the whole thing.
See, you got through it. Yeah. So if I were to go online, where would I go to find this?
Go to bocodems.org. It's on the landing page of the county website, and you'll see it's the voter guide right there, and it's in Spanish and English.
So
online.
Excellent. And so anyone can look at this online, make up their mind about whether or not they want to follow these recommendations or other ones. We did a town hall on most of the ballot issues just a couple weeks ago. You can actually look at that online and hear a little bit more about the details behind this. And we have a lot of important things to decide this election. Are there one or two things that you would really want to highlight for viewers out there that come to the top of your head? One or two ballot issues that just stick out in your mind?
Right. Well, I think about the people that aren't in the weeds like we are, and they're working hard and putting food on the table, and they're inundated with all these ads on TV that are just really confusing. And so I always think about the fact that some of those great grassroots issues that stood out in hot parking lots, trying to get signatures, and one of them is 112, which is the setback measure, and I think about the fact that they got 172,000 signatures. That's no small thing. They were accused of those petition gatherers were accused of certain things that was not fair, but they got it on the ballot, and it's up to the voters to decide. And that's one thing that I feel pretty strongly
112,
about.
you talk about setbacks. So this would require the oil and gas operations be 2,500 feet from schools, from homes, from waterways, all of these things. And like you said, people went out there, they got thousands, tens of thousands of signatures. Volunteers out there have got tens of thousands of signatures to just have the right to put this on the ballot.
Exactly.
Now it's up to us to carry that through.
Right.
So I'll tell you the one that I think about right now, and this is why I wear these buttons out here is yes on 73.
Yes, definitely. Education.
We have $1 billion hole in our education system, and right now we can either keep going with the status quo, or we can actually build something better for our future and do it without raising taxes on close to 90% of folks. There's no middle class tax increase, and at the same time, we're going to get millions and millions of dollars into our schools, in our local school districts, and give it to us school boards to decide how to best spend those dollars.
Exactly.
I mean, that is so important. And in Colorado, where lawmakers like me can't raise taxes,
Right.
there's a powerful opportunity for folks out there to vote.
Right.
So, well, the last thing that I'll mention here is, the only way that we win elections is by getting people to vote.
Yes.
And the bread and butter of that is just volunteers. You've
Yes.
been doing it for 11 years now.
I think, yeah.
11
right.
years now.
Yeah.
If there was someone new to the process that said, well, I want to get involved, but I'm not sure how, or I'm not sure I want to get involved, what would you say to that, to that person today about why they should get involved, why they should speak up and volunteer?
Well, we see it all around us, I mean, there's a lot to be cynical about. There's a lot of things that are just kind of weighing. I think our nation is probably collectively depressed in some regards.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that you combat that is to do one more thing than you're used to doing. So in other words, let's say you're commenting on Facebook about a political issue. Well, you know what? That just hangs out in the Facebook sphere. What's one more thing you could do? Well, maybe it is, really learning about your ballot. And then what's one more thing? Sharing it with another person. And I always use the metaphor about the cow being out of the barn. I mean, the cow got out of the barn when I realized how much of a difference the grassroots kind of thing makes in your own life. And don't be cynical. This is the most hopeful thing you can do is to engage other people about voting and taking part. It sounds corny, but taking part in your democracy. And just one more thing than you're used to doing. And you'll be amazed at how good it makes you feel. It really truly does.
And that doesn't sound hard. I mean, a lot of people think they have to be experts on all these different issues. And what I tell people is, look, I'm a volunteer. Obviously, I'm an elected official, but for the most part, I'm a volunteer.
Yeah. Right?
And so, I may not know all the facts, but this is so important to me that I'm taking my Saturday, my Sunday afternoon to do this. And that goes such a long way with people. They go, oh, you're not paid to do this. You're just doing it because you think it's the right thing.
Yeah.
And then they can go to these websites. So what's the best way that people can get involved right now? Is there a website? Is there a phone number, an email address? Where should people go if they want to volunteer today?
Well, if you go to bocodems.org, there's like a vote tab, and then there's like volunteer tabs that you can hook into. If you live in the Longmont area Dems, we're very active. So longmontdems.org is another place to go. Our email address is there. If anybody has any political questions whatsoever, we'll hopefully help them. You mentioned earlier, like if people did not get their ballot and they're concerned about that, first thing, go to govotecolorado.com and make sure your registration and your address is current. But then if you still haven't gotten your ballot, call your county clerk just to make sure that it's on its way. Another thing you can do is sign up for ballot tracks, which is also really great. That's a free thing through the Boulder County elections. And that basically tracks your ballot. But you can go to bouldercounty.org/elections or Boulder County Votes, any of those, to get all that kind of logistical information. So
many places to go, so many ways to get plugged in.
Yeah.
bocodems.org, longmontareadems.org.
longmontdems.org.
longmontdems.org.
Right.
We'll get this right.
Yeah.
singerforcolorado.com. You can go to all those places. There's a volunteer button. You can click on it, and if you've got, what does it take? 10 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour?
2 hours on a weekend makes a huge difference. It'll fly, for one thing. But, after a while, you start to kind of, like if you work with somebody else, like if you're dropping information at doors, voter guides at doors or whatever, you can have one person drive and another person does the running, and you can knock off like 40 houses in, a couple hours. And it feels really good. And I guess I want to say one more thing about the voter guide is that when you drop the voter guide, people look forward to getting it. One of my favorite stories is walking up to a woman's address. She opens the door. I'm on her sidewalk, and I'm thinking she's going to tell me to get off of her lawn. But she goes, I've been waiting for that. And that's a real gratifying thing for a volunteer to hear. And so all I know is that volunteers are very much appreciated, and it's very very gratifying.
So we're the change we're waiting for, and the voter guide is the guide we're waiting for.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we'll leave it at that. But thank you, Marisa, for what you do, and to our viewing audience out there. Don't forget to go to those websites. We'll put them in the comments section. But Marisa's been doing this for 11 years, and look, she's still here. We've survived, and this could be our future. Could be what we make it to be. So thanks again.
Thank you.